I mean, the main difference is probably the level of oxytocin. I mentioned before, oxytocin is this love hormone. Oxytocin is the primary driver of social reward. So when you have oxytocin flowing in your brain, that's your brain telling you, I like this person. I want to spend more time with this person. So if you think about the relationships where you feel that vibe, right? I really don't want to be apart from this person. I just love being around them. Being around them feels so great. For most people, they're going to say romantic partner, children, right? And it's totally accurate. That's exactly what the research shows, is that people who, these types of relationships trigger an oxytocin driven response in the brain. And so, yes, these relationships might make us feel better because, as I mentioned, oxytocin makes us feel good. But the other thing is that oxytocin has all these amazing health benefits. And again, evolutionary viewpoint, but when we are in a position to mate, right? We find someone, a romantic partner that we love, and we are in a position to reproduce, which is like the hallmark of human and any animal's success on Earth, right? Our goal is to reproduce so that our
Right.
species continues. We need to be physically fit and prepared to reproduce. So oxytocin has all these off-target benefits, systemic benefits in the brain and body. It's, like anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective. It can help with immune function, like bone support. There's all these great things that oxytocin does for us. And I think that's really important for us to understand, because when we are, therefore, in deep romantic love, or we are bonding with a child and we just have so much oxytocin flowing through our bodies want to protect us so that we can protect this child or continue to mate. And we have all sorts of health benefits. And that's rare. That is unlike other bonds. And, I think that's one of the sort of key variables that separates these romantic and, these really special tight bonds from, the buddy that you go out to the bar with once a week or whatever. Your brain isn't falling in love with that person. It is benefiting from that person, no doubt. But to experience these level above bonds is something special for
Right.
the brain and body.
Okay, cool. I want to talk about inner brain synchrony. That sounds sci-fi. That's like, so what is it really? Like, how do two brains actually sync up?
So I don't believe. Okay, well, first, inner brain synchrony is what it sounds like. It's two brains. If you measure two brains at the same time, which, by the way, the term for that is hyperscanning. Awesome name. If you measure them at the same time, sometimes if people are interacting, they will show the same patterns of activity. So that is interbrain synchrony, that the patterns are synchronized. I don't believe that they're actually doing some sort of like quantum physics dance of like, synchronizing through, like telecommunication. I don't think that's what's happening. I think that what it actually is happening is you're basically just getting on the same wavelength, which is kind of a, funny old expression, but it's true that you are like thinking the same way. You're just on the same page. And so if you're to measure the activity of certain brain areas, it would look the same, because you're totally in a rhythm together. And like this happens to me with my wife all the time, where, a lot of people have expressed this to me too. They're like, oh my gosh, 100%, you're like in the car on a Saturday and you're just like driving somewhere, and at the exact same moment, you're both just like, oh, we should stop at this place and like get that, breakfast we like or whatever. It's just, that happens to me all the time. And this interbrain synchrony is thought to be supportive for basically like teamwork. It makes sense, right? You're kind of on the same page. And it also seems to be more accessible. It's more likely to happen between two brains who are basically on the same team or have some shared interest or are sharing the same experience or are working together. And there's even some evidence that when this happens, it improves the performance of those groups. It's interesting because there's also evidence that it doesn't improve the performance of the group. So it might be sort of task dependent. It only helps with certain things. But it's an amazing feature of our brains that we probably wouldn't know about if not for the amazing contributions of neuroscience to humanity. But maybe something that we could feel, and that's something I'm personally curious about, is like when I do feel like I'm on the same page as someone, we're really like on the same wavelength. Like, is that actually interbrain synchrony? And I don't think there's any research on that, like characterizing the subjective experience of interbrain synchrony. I don't think anyone's actually looked at that.